Ahoy, crew members. Today we're diving into another Jesse Lee Peterson interview. Yes, Jesse Lee Peterson, where the questions are simple, the answers are uncomfortable, and the contradictions come fast. I'll pause along the way to break down the logic, the fallacies, and the mental gymnastics on display. If you enjoy sharp analysis and no-nonsense commentary, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and let's get into it.
You speak very well and you're black. How did that happen?
What does that mean?
You speak well. You speak like a white person. How did that happen?
How do I speak like a white person?
All proper and right, and you can understand you use the right words, and how did that happen?
I'm confused by your question. How do I?
You speak like a white man.
I do?
Yeah, and that's good, not bad. But I'm just wondering, how did that happen?
Or do I speak like a black man?
No.
Oh, I don't speak like a black man? Black men are well-read. We go to college. We take care of our kids. We pay our taxes. We do our responsibility. So I don't know how that is white. I know that's what black men do. That's what I know.
What's wrong with the blacks?
Let's pause right here. This whole you speak white framing is a textbook false premise. It assumes intelligence, articulation, or professionalism belong to one race. That's not an argument. That's a stereotype wearing a moral badge. What's ironic is both sides reject the premise, but for different reasons. George says, educated black men exist, which is true, but that still accepts the idea that speech patterns are tied to racial identity in the first place. Jesse pushes the stereotype to expose it, but never actually defines what a black way of speaking even is. So we're debating a label that no one can coherently define. When an argument starts with an undefined term, it's already on shaky ground.
I'm confused by your question.
What's wrong with the blacks?
You're going to have to be way more specific than that. I don't know what that means.
Why are they so dependent and needy and think that there's something called white supremacy and somehow or another somebody else can hold them back? And so they want DEI, they want affirmative action and all that stuff. What's wrong with the blacks that they think that way? That they're not independent thinkers and can do it for themselves. They always need somebody to do it for them or give it to them, or they blame others for their failure. And not all, but most.
I was about to say, why would you not think that black people are independent thinkers and leaders?
Because they have black leaders, and they want DEI, they want affirmative action, they want things without earning it.
I don't believe that that's true.
You know, do you live in America?
Yes, I live in America.
Amazing.
Amazing. Here's what I believe.
You don't see what's going on around you?
Of course I see what's going on. I live it every single day. Let's talk about DEI specifically, okay? When you hear somebody like Charlie Kirk, right? The late Charlie Kirk, say the words, man, if I get on an airplane and I see a black pilot, I wonder if that's a DEI hire. When you hear people on television or on podcasts or anything question any time that either a woman or a person of color is in a position of authority or significance, if it was a DEI hire in it, why wasn't it the best man for the job? Okay. That inherently assumes that a person of color, woman, black person, Hispanic, Muslim, whatever it is, that they're not the best person for that job, and that the white person was actually the better person for the job. That's the case when that's not the case.
How do you know? But you don't know it because
how do you know the white person is the right person for the job? Why don't we ask the same question. Oh, well, I don't know if the white person is qualified.
Well, because for the last 70 years or so, you have not heard the white man begging and blaming and letting me in without me having to earn it. And they're lowering the scores and lowering the SAT and everything to let the black person in, and they're putting them in position just because of their color
No,
or
that's
male
not
or female.
true.
It is. Look at that. Let me ask, because of time, why wouldn't you be suspicious if you know that for 70 years blacks been getting it only because of their colors, not because they were qualified? I remember I got on the plane one day and I saw a black person, a black lady flying the plane. I'm like, what the?
Well, that sounds like a you problem.
And then they had a white man.
If you're not questioning,
then they had a white man being the real driver.
You felt real safe.
I felt better.
Oh, you felt safe.
Because I know that black people get in these things without being qualified. You just had a woman.
Hold on.
You just had a woman running for president who was not qualified. She was only picked because of her color on the Democratic side. What was her name? That black woman that running for
you know who it is. I'm not even going to dignify that right now.
Kamala Harris.
So
and then they got a black female on the U.S. Supreme Court only because of her color and a female on the U.S. Supreme Court.
Is that why Clarence Thomas got there too?
No, not Thomas. That woman.
So she got there that way, but Thomas earned his way.
They said she was there because of her color.
That's interesting.
Pause again. Notice what happens in the DEI discussion. Jesse argues that preferential systems create dependency. George responds by pointing to historical injustice. That's not a rebuttal. That's a category shift. The question isn't whether historical discrimination happened. Everyone agrees it did. The question is whether modern race-based policies actually solve present-day problems or quietly create new ones. George leans on moral justification, not outcomes. Jesse leans on outcomes but overgeneralizes motives. Both sides talk past each other. One argues intention, the other argues consequence. That's why this debate goes in circles. If you don't separate historical explanation from policy effectiveness, you end up defending systems without ever measuring whether they work or who they hurt.
So
you naturally you're gonna wonder.
No, hold up.
I wonder if that black person earned this or this a DEI patient.
So I'm glad that
because that's what you've been just saying for 70 years.
So
Am I wrong? Or am I right?
You are 100% wrong.
How am I
wrong? What has happened is this. There are multiple things at play here. First thing is I'm 44 years old, okay? My parents, my dad was born in 1960 in Memphis, Tennessee, okay? What was going on in 1960 in the South?
They had this unnecessary so-called civil rights movement going on.
No, that's not what I'm asking. What was going on? Were schools integrated?
No.
Okay. Was redlining in terms of people getting loans and all of that? Was that happening?
No. I got proof. What else?
Oh, Lord,
what else you want to know about? I got proof, buddy.
So people are still being lynched in the South. People are voting rights. There's the civil rights movement is going on. All of this stuff is happening in 1960 when my father is born, right? My father is still alive to this day. And I make that point to we are not as far away from things as people believe. I do believe that we live in a time where there is more opportunity for people than there has ever been. And I do believe...
And the blacks are still being in the blame.
Hold on. And I do believe that there are people who use things as a crutch to not go out and be successful.
Talking about the blacks?
No. Of all people.
How about the blacks?
Of all people.
How about the blacks?
And also, at the same time, you do have to acknowledge history. You do have to acknowledge that when you have looked at the economics of the country, where black people, where they, for a long time, you could not own land, and you also were prevented from owning land. And then when you look at what happened in Tulsa, where there were black neighborhoods and something, you burn it down. So black people socio-economically especially, it does take a while to catch up. And I do believe that there are people who use that as a crutch. But to this day, there are more black millionaires than there have ever been. There are more black billionaires than there have ever been. There are more black people going to college than there have ever been.
Let me say, because of time, I grew up in Alabama on a plantation under Jim Crow laws, when the schools were not integrated.
Yep.
They were separated. Black people were way better off then than they are today.
How do you figure that?
Because they educated themselves. Those that wanted to go to college went to college and came back as professionals to black universities because they couldn't go to white ones at the time. And then I never know a time when black people could not buy land. Matter of fact, my aunt and her husband got married in the 60s. And they bought buku land.
Okay.
And they had like 15, 16, 17 children. And none of their children, every one of them went to school, they graduated high school, and they all went to college. And and their parents owned land. My best friend and his parents owned buku land. Yeah. And they were doing just fine.
And that is great.
And they weren't blaming the white people. They weren't, Jim Crow law existed, but it did not affect them at all because they moved, so did I, my parents. We moved on in life, period.
Possibly say
black were more. Let me just say this because
you
of
can't
time.
possibly say that they got along better.
I was there. This ain't no hearsay.
No.
And the blacks and the whites got along better then.
Because if you
I was there. They got along better
because you were asked to
ask.
You were demanded. If you grew up in the 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s in the South, there were certain ways that you had to behave to keep yourself safe.
That's not true.
How?
Why do you have that? What do you mean by that? I don't even know what you mean.
Like, there have been a lot of people who have been lynched, killed, jailed, all stuff for looking at white people the wrong way.
And where you get that from?
From my grandparents' experience, from my parents' experience.
Your grandparent was lynched?
Huh?
Your grandparent was lynched?
No, but they've seen and experienced those things.
And they were doing that
in the South.
in Memphis, Tennessee?
Yes. Where do you? And
let me tell you this: the worst thing that ever happened to the black was the civil rights movement.
Okay.
And because prior to that, they didn't have leaders; they had parents. And the parents made them work and showed them what to do.
See, this is not true. See,
I was living it. They wanted power and they wanted money, so they used the blacks. And it was a social program.
Okay.
And now black people have a socialist mentality like they've never had before.
No. So
I'm telling you, I was there. Does that matter?
Okay,
I was there.
So can I get a chance because you have? Okay, I appreciate that.
No.
So
you can go ahead.
So when you look at the history of the country, okay, and you look at slavery, okay, slavery, what happened to black families during slavery?
They worked and they got paid and they were fed.
Now, what happened to black families during slavery?
They were happier then than now.
What happened to fathers during slavery?
They had to work.
Would they not break up families?
Who?
The slave masters. They would sell off.
What have you been reading? Chipman Tuck book or somebody?
No. I actually read our history books written by black people and by white people. So we were at a time. So we're at a time where you are in slavery, and there are families are being.
How long ago was slavery? Did slavery exist? Was it like 150 years or something?
How long?
Was that like 150 years ago?
There is a.
No,
there is a-
ask you that question.
There is a difference.
Was it like 150 years ago?
There is a difference between.
No, answer that
when,
for
when
me.
slavery was outlawed and when it was stopped.
Was it?
And also, hold on. And then came after slavery, came indentured servitude, all this. So let's go back to slavery. Black
but
families.
Because of time, we're like running out of time.
Black
tape another show.
Okay, that's fine. Then
was
so
it 150 years ago?
Black families are broken up. Okay, black families were broken up. That educational opportunities were minimal. That there and that
But
you
that's not
that
true,
it
though.
does. That it definitely is true because
How did my
because
friend
you are
grow
not
up and
allowed.
become a doctor?
Let's hit pause here because this is the biggest logical whiplash. Saying people were better off under Jim Crow because some succeeded is survivorship bias. Pointing to exceptions doesn't disprove systemic danger. That's like saying seatbelts aren't needed because some people survive crashes. But on the flip side, George sometimes implies history fully explains current outcomes, which drifts into determinism. If the past explains everything, then agency today explains nothing. That's just pessimism dressed up as compassion. You can acknowledge historical brutality and argue for personal responsibility without contradiction. The fallacy is pretending it has to be one or the other. Reality is messier, and that's exactly what neither side wants to fully admit.
Your friend.
He went to an all-black school.
Your friend lived in the right place.
He
was
lived
born
in Alabama.
Hold on. He lived in the right place. Was
No,
born
he
into the
lived in
right
Alabama,
family.
man.
Who is this friend?
My friend that I grew up with. He went in Alabama.
Yes,
and how
there are
that in my
plenty-
class? In my class.
Yes.
Just my class alone.
Yep.
Except for two people, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody became professionals. They became teachers. Why did they do so well?
Well,
If slavery is the problem.
that is. See, you're trying to twist it. That's not what I said. Is that, of course, there have been
When
black
would
people.
blacks
hold on.
drop those excuses like
there
that?
have been black people throughout history who have been successful, and you also have to understand as well that people in socioeconomically disadvantaged situations, that the path out is significantly harder. If you are a kid who...
But why did they do much better when Jim Crow existed than they are today?
Well, that's not
when
true.
they're free to do what they want.
Are there more...
What do the blacks want from the whites? What else can the white man do for them? What do they want?
What does the black man want from the white man?
Yeah, the black people want from the white. What else do they want?
I'm confused.
What else?
Why would you want anything?
Well, why they keep begging and blaming?
Who are these people that are begging and blaming?
The affirmative.
Because it sounds like...
I got you.
Okay.
A well-known one just popped in my mind.
Okay.
And then I got to move on, man. Do you know who Jasmine Cricket is?
Who?
Jasmine Cricket.
Nah, I don't know that person.
She is, I think she's
Jasmine
a so-called...
Crockett?
What?
Crockett?
You do know who she is.
I know who Jasmine Crockett is. I don't know who Jasmine Crooked is.
Oh. You know who she is, right?
Yes, I'm aware
Every
of
time
she
she opened her mouth, she blaming white people and crying racism. What do you think about that?
So you would like to...
No, actually, what do you think about that?
So you would like to, for me to take one person whose stuff you don't like. So,
Okay, I got another one you know.
Hold on.
I got another one you know.
So if I take David Duke, who was the leader of the Ku Klux Klan, and I say, all right, so what do you think about that white person saying that? As an indictment on all white people, or an indictment on a culture of white people, that wouldn't feel fair or authentic.
How
right?
about Big Mama Michelle Obama?
Who?
Big Mama Michelle.
Oh, we're not gonna do that.
You know who she is, right?
I don't know who that is.
Obama's wife.
What's her name?
Michelle.
Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
the former First Lady of the United States.
Right.
I know who that
She's still
well-respected
whining.
woman is.
She still ain't happy. And she was the first lady of the greatest country on earth. And she's still complaining. What do you say about that?
That's interesting. Okay, so is President Trump, is he complaining every time he talks about, or anybody says the words, "Make America great again," or that anything is wrong with the country or anything? Is that complaining?
What?
Is that complaining? Because that sounds like if
But Michelle is complaining that it was just too hard for her. She was black.
she never said that. That is a lie.
No, what she said was
No.
more was expected from her because they were black.
That is true
That's
at
not
times.
true.
That's 100%
That is not
true
true.
at times.
That is not true. That's never true. Never has been true.
That
and
is-
never will be true.
That
is
may not be the
true.
way that you want to see the
No,
world.
no, that's not it.
However, that is not.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. We covered a lot: race and identity, DEI and dependency, history versus personal responsibility, and how both sides sometimes talk past each other instead of addressing the core argument. You saw the contradictions, the weak framing, and a few solid points mixed in along the way. If you enjoy this kind of breakdown, logic over feelings, make sure you subscribe, hit like, and leave your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.